Ibra once slapped an opponent, and he did it to a teammate too. Not many have the guts to stand up to Ibra. Even Cristiano Ronaldo got on the wrong side of him. But some decided to fight back. Those are the moments when Ibrahimović went too far. Ibrahimović had a historic clash with Cristiano Ronaldo. He was humiliated by the Portuguese. It all went down during a crucial match for the 2014 World Cup qualification. Sweden and Portugal were battling for a spot, and it all came down to one game. Portugal had won the first leg 1-0, so Sweden needed to win by at least 2 goals. And it happened, at least for a while. Ibra scored 2 goals in less than 5 minutes until the beast unleashed his fury.
Uma besta enjaulada!
Scored 3 goals in that match, just as Ibra had netted 2 in under 5 minutes. Ronaldo's historic performance kept Ibra out of the World Cup. But what really caught everyone's attention was the internet going wild over this game. People started saying that Cristiano is bigger and better than Ibra, and with the Swede's massive ego, he didn't take kindly to that. At the time, he even said that the real loser in that match was the World Cup, missing out on a player like him in the event. But the feud with Cristiano didn't stop there. Years later, he joined Juventus while Ibrahimović was with Milan. Certainly, he was asked about the big robot's move to Juve and had this to say: "Nah, the real Ronaldo is the Brazilian. Yours isn't a natural talent, it's the result of a lot of hard work." He went to a team that won Serie A 7 times in a row. Going to a club like that isn't a challenge. The guy carried a chip on his shoulder from that game for the rest of his career. The Robo's luck was that Ibrahimović didn't retaliate with provocations on the field. But that wasn't the case in the next incident. While playing in England for Manchester United, this guy did something terrible to Ibrahimović that nearly cost the striker his life. Ibra was on the ground when this player accidentally stepped on his head. Thankfully, it wasn't a full stomp or something tragic could have happened to Ibra. But whether it was an accident or not, Ibrahimović found a way to get back at him. Look at what he did moments later. I think that elbow hurt even more than the accidental stomp. When he was in the MLS, the guy pulled a similar move. He even claimed in an interview that he was the best player in the league at that time. Turns out he wasn't wrong, but Ibra was being, at the very least, arrogant with that statement. You could see he really thought highly of himself when this incident occurred. An opponent accidentally stepped on his foot, and he smacked the guy without mercy. The incident earned a red card, but the main message was clear: better not mess with me. He did the same with another player. Ibra pulled him in a play, and right after scoring a goal, he went over to give the guy a piece of his mind. I don't know what the guy did to provoke Ibra, but it worked because even after the game, they were still exchanging words. But where he really pulled off these kinds of moves was in France. Playing for PSG, Ibra instilled fear in his opponents through sheer force. This is how Ibrahimović does man-to-man marking. Even the referees in League One weren't spared. This one wanted to have a word with Ibra, but the player didn't even bother going to him. However, Ibrahimović didn't fare well against some players. Take this short guy named Mavuba, for example. The guy didn't let Ibra intimidate him. After a push, he went right at him and smacked the striker in the face. Lukaku was one of the top players in the Italian league when Ibrahimović joined Milan, and they had a serious falling out. And I'm not just talking about the ball, they almost came to blows. Ibra is a giant and a black belt in Taekwondo, but this time he picked a fight with a guy much bigger than him. Lukaku looks like a walking tank. Look at the size of this guy. That's why when they faced each other in one of the biggest derbies in the world, Inter Milan versus AC Milan, things got ugly. They had to be held back, and while Lukaku tried to go at him, Ibra simply stepped away. Was it fear? But the player who really struck fear into Ibra wasn't on a rival team, but on his own. In his first stint with AC Milan, Ibra was in a squad full of stars like Alexandre Pato and Robinho, and it was Pato who told this story in an interview. The Brazilian said that during a practice session, Ibra took a really nasty tackle from a defender named Oguchi Onyewu.
Era o capitão, acho, da seleção dos Estados Unidos.
Onyewu was just starting his career with a big team and wasn't even a regular starter, but he was a giant of a defender.
Zagueirão grandão, coice, chute, porrada e bola pra frente.
Literally, since he's almost 2 meters tall and quite strong.
Aí o Nievo, o Ibra pegou na bola, o Nievo foi marcar ele. Aí o Nievo, sem querer, bateu no pé do Ibra. Só que o pé do cara desse tamanho...
Onyewu apologized for the tackle, and the practice continued as usual.
Continuou jogando e a gente entende, o Nievo fez isso, mas não foi na maldade, ele fez porque tentou pegar a bola.
The striker delivered a scissor tackle from behind on Onyewu, and things got ugly.
2 pés no Nievo, e o Nievo...
Pra dar mesmo.
Pra dar mesmo, e eu falei, caraca, o que aconteceu? Aí os dois caíram no chão.
The defender went after the Swede, delivered a judo move, and completely immobilized Ibra.
E subiu em cima do Ibra, e segurou o Ibra assim, ó. E levantou o braço. Na hora que ele levantou o braço, para, meu Deus do céu, vai matar esse cara aí.
When he was about to throw a punch at the striker, the defender took a deep breath and walked away. Ibra tells this story in a different way. In an interview and also in his biography, he says that the altercation did happen, and Onyewu was the biggest guy he ever faced. However, when the defender confronted him, Ibra grabbed him by the shirt collar, and Onyewu began apologizing and praying. I don't need to tell you that this sounds like a tall tale. Anyway, what we do know is that after the altercation, Ibra ended up with 3 broken ribs, but it was at Barcelona where he made more enemies. Ibra left Spain with a bad reputation and a possible hidden relationship. Peak had Ibra on the ropes, and let's say they were quite close. This photo was taken by a fan who saw them after a training session, and their bromance caused a stir worldwide. The Catalans had just been eliminated in the Champions League semi-final that year, and this could have been just a moment when one teammate consoled the other. However, they were so close that it seemed odd without context. The next day, a reporter asked Ibra what had happened when the star arrived at the Barcelona training center. She was subtle and respectful, asking if Ibra was gay. Ibra was indignant at the question and said, "Come to my house and I'll show you what I am."
Ibra, ¿estás enfadado?
Casa mia, ti lascio vedere chi è maricone.
Ah, vale, pues me vengo a tu casa.
Porta tua hermana anche.
¿Estás enfadado? No te enfades, hombre.
A response as subtle as the question. He even added, "Feel free to bring your sister along." This wasn't the first time someone asked the player a question like that. Years before, he was seen staring down Ronaldo Fenomeno, and many took it the wrong way. The player mentioned that Ronaldo was his main inspiration, so that look is probably one of admiration and nothing more. The following year, Ibra went to Milan, and there was another photo of the player, this time with the fullback Abate. In the end, Ibrahimovic's preferences don't matter, but his silence makes many fans think he's hiding something. As for Peak, he said that at that moment the striker had congratulated him on his biography, which had just been released, and he gave him a hug and a handshake in return. Either way, you can see that the two were very close. But if there's one guy who came to hate Ibra in Spain, it was Pep Guardiola. The guy is probably the best coach of all time, and he couldn't handle Ibra's personality. In fact, Guardiola preferred to use Messi, who was a right-winger, as a false 9, rather than try to play the club's biggest investment up front. And this relationship stuck in the striker's throat. In several interviews, he criticized Guardiola and publicly questioned why the coach didn't play him. Ibra said that after a while, the coach wouldn't even talk to him. And of course, he made some more controversial statements, like saying he's a Ferrari and that Guardiola didn't know how to drive. To the Marca newspaper, he said Guardiola sacrificed him for Messi but never had the courage to admit it. But what we really like is when the Swede goes beyond the limits of a normal striker, scoring unbelievable goals. Starting with this one, which for me is the best goal of the star. It's a bicycle kick from outside the area that went over the goalkeeper and the entire defense. And it wasn't against just any team. Sweden's opponent was the mighty England. And this superb backheel volley against Napoli. Check out the amazing goal he scored after launching that bomb with his right foot. It's one of those shots that hit the sweet spot. Another very similar one was this one scored by Milan. Look at another backheel goal from the star. But for many, this was the most beautiful goal of the star's career. Right at the beginning of his career as a professional player, he scored this masterpiece wearing the Ajax shirt. The guy left the entire defense on the ground before placing the ball in the corner. Now tell me, which Ibra goal impressed you the most? Speaking of which, Click on the video appearing on your screen and be amazed by the 10 moments of Ronaldinho Gaucho that shocked the world.